All right. How's it going, guys? Jason Pat here, and then I'm with our good friend Ricky O'Donnell. We're going to talk about some Bulls basketball, even though there's a lot of fun NBA playoff action going on. The Bulls aren't in it, although it kind of feels like they are in it because there's a million former Bulls destroying the playoffs, especially when you look over at our friends down south, the New Orleans Pelicans, just absolutely tearing it up with and I just shaved in honor of Beardless Nico, who's basically like an all-star now, and all those other guys. But we're not going to talk about that. Maybe a little. Maybe we'll talk about it a little. But mostly we are going to talk about the 2017-2018 Chicago Bulls, a season that was mostly miserable, that I basically didn't care about for the last second half of the year, but I still kind of followed along and read all the great work that was put out there. So the Bulls went 27-55, right? I think that was it. I think, yeah, that definitely was it because I made a bet with a friend that a 26.5 over-under bet that I won thanks to their one extra win. So 27-55, they were slightly better than maybe we expected because a lot of people thought that they would be the worst team in the league. They started like that. They won a few games. Nico went crazy. Lauri Markkanen was actually good, was actually better than expected. Chris Dunn wasn't too bad. Bobby Portis flexed on people a little too often. But what are your just overall impressions of this past Bulls season?
Well, it is a bummer, I think, that the season ends with the Bulls being sixth in the lottery standings. Now, we don't really know if that's going to take hold or not. The Bulls could easily jump into the top three. And I think, even making that jump from like 9-8 to 7-6 over the last, 10 days of the season could just be monumental for them. So I think that that's great. But now looking back at the picture, or looking back at the season in like sort of the big picture sense, that 7-game winning streak they went on with Nico, that was just like absolutely detrimental. Would they have had the best yet? Like they would have had the best lottery odds without that. They would have been the worst team in the league with 20 wins. So I think, you saw what Mirotic did last night in the playoffs for the Pelicans, scoring 30 points, going like 12 of 15 from the field, just raining threes. Mirotic has turned into like a top 50 player, undeniably, in the whole league, right? So, I still think the Mirotic situation, even though, it's over at this point, like, it still sort of hangs over, the type of roster the Bulls are going to build because they were really good when they had that other floor spacing shooter next to Markkanen. I really liked the pairing when they would close with the two of them together, even though like the defensive efficiency rating wasn't very good for them. You've seen Mirotic just played great defense in the playoffs this season. Markkanen will only get better with age. So I think, did the Bulls get enough for Mirotic with the number 22 pick? They really need to make that pick count this year in addition to their own, whether it be six or in the top three. So, it's kind of funny now, just looking back the last couple of years, the Bulls had Jimmy Butler. They had another great player, Nikola Mirotic, who they just totally marginalized 2 seasons ago by signing Wade and Rondo. You just wonder if, the Bulls could have built a good team with Butler and Mirotic. You would think they should have been able to, but
Etuan Moore, a key part of the Pelicans. But yeah,
it's sort of like the Bulls are in the playoffs when you factor in the like combined $27 million they're currently paying Wade and Rondo right now. So we have a reason to be invested. The Bulls are basically in the playoffs with their paybook.
Yeah, it's honestly hilarious, and this whole season was just super weird. Was said it started with Nico getting punched in the face. I think Bobby Portis might have done him a favor. God, because ever since then he killed it with the Bulls. When he came back from that, he was a little iffy with the Pelicans when he first got traded, but literally since he shaved his damn beard, he's been basically like putting up DeMarcus Cousins like numbers. He hasn't just been like, he was obviously scoring great yesterday, just hitting ridiculous shots, but like he's blocking shots, he's getting steals, he's battling down low with Jusuf Nurkic. Like he's basically doing everything. It's like it really is kind of unfortunate that the Bulls kind of screwed up the whole thing with Nico because, like you said, they kind of marginalized him. We saw some of the talent. He was inconsistent, but like they always had other guys in place to kind of put over him in the hierarchy. You were always on the empower Nico thing, and now he's finally empowered, I guess, with the Pelicans. But yeah, but that whole season with the Bulls, they started terribly without Nico, with Portis suspended for a bit. It looked like they were well on their way. 3-20. They were awful. They were miserable. Nico goes crazy. We did kind of see, even though like that obviously did hurt the team a little bit in terms of their draft standing, we did see some nice things that come out of those hot stretches. And in general, we saw Lauri Markkanen looks awesome. I'm kind of all in on the Lauri experience. He's good shooter. He hit like 153 pointers or something this year. He broke Kirk Heinrich's, I think, franchise record. Showing some nice things off the dribble, some awesome dunks. His defense still isn't good, but he showed the possibility to be all right. So I'm all in on the Lowry experience. The Chris Dunn thing, I was so down on Chris Dunn just after the trade, just watching him last year at the Timberwolves, and he was a little better than expected. He's still got a long way to go, and that's kind of been a hot topic I've seen, is talking about whether Chris Dunn, is he a point guard of the future type? Like, is he your definite guy? Like, I know John Paxson talked about how they're happy with him and Cameron Payne being the point guard rotation next year. So I guess, what do you think? What is your take on Chris Dunn's season with the Bulls?
Yeah, so like basically everyone in the league plays the same way now, and it's all spread pick and roll with 4 shooters. At least 3 or 4 shooters around one guy who's sort of the offensive initiator. I would call that position now, even more so than point guard, like, because Ben Simmons plays it for the Sixers, Harden does it for the Rockets, Donovan Mitchell does it for the Jazz. Like, so basically you need that one perimeter player who's going to initiate the offense. The Bulls sort of had Butler in that role, but never really gave him that much power. Really, we could have been talking about empowering Butler too, making him, play more like Harden, which was an idea that Kevin Farragon had back in the day, that I think, they should have done, because now you look at it and pretty much every team is playing this way, with one dominant ball handling guard sort of initiating the offense, setting everything else up, and, put shooting around him, and you see where they go from there. So the question is, do the Bulls have that type of player on the roster right now? Is it Zach LaVine? Is it Chris Dunn? Or do they need to go outside of the roster to try to find and develop that player? Because I do think the Bulls, they definitely had a great draft pick with Markkanen. Markkanen's going to be part of the, one of their 2 or 3 best players, you would hope.
Foundational piece. Yeah, that's what Paxson said. And I would agree with them. I'm totally on board with that.
Right. But now with this 6th pick, assuming it's going to be at 6, the question is, can you find sort of your lead offensive initiator, or do you believe that Dunn or LaVine is one of those guys? Like, I think it all circles back to the Trae Young debate, which to me is probably going to be that's going to be the big question facing the Bulls. Like, are they going to take Trae Young, or do they think that he either doesn't fit well enough with Dunn and LaVine, or that he's just not going to be a great pro? Because the more I think about it, like, if you look at the options the Bulls are probably going to have, you assume Michael Porter could be there, Marvin Bagley could be there. I think that Jaren Jackson's going to be gone, Ayton's going to be gone, Doncic's going to be gone, Bamba probably gone. So then it's like, of the guys available, do you try to hit like a double with maybe someone like Michael Porter or Bagley, players who are good but sort of have limitations? I feel like Trae Young is the home run pick, and I can easily talk myself into it. Sort of, where do you stand on?
So I guess going with that, like,
enough to lead the team in the future.
I would say just back to like you mentioned a guy like Michael Porter as a double pick. I feel like a lot of Bulls fans are like really in on Michael Porter, because obviously he came in when he went to Missouri. I mean, I feel like people talked about him as a possible number 1 pick, then he had the back injury, and now some people are souring. But I feel like a lot of Bulls fans are like all in on Michael Porter Jr. Like, I guess. So talk about him a bit more. Like, what do you think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've seen Michael Porter play probably more than anyone, because I saw him play for 2 years in the EYBL, which is Nike's AAU league. I saw him for 2 years at USA Basketball Camp, and then I saw him at the McDonald's game and McDonald's practices. The first time I saw him was him versus Jason Tatum. Tatum was a year older than him, of course, and they were playing AAU in Lexington, Kentucky, and it was just like a wild atmosphere around the game. It was really, really fun looking back at it now. Back then, I thought Porter was a sure thing. I really thought that he was like kind of the 3-4 hybrid version of what Paul George is, whereas Paul George is sort of a 2-3 combo. Porter was a 3-4. But the injury is really scary. Like, at his best, Porter could score off the dribble. He was also a really high volume scorer. He actually played on the same high school team, Mocan Elite, the same AAU team, with Trae Young. And I'll tell you then, never at any point did anyone in the gym think Trae Young was a better long-term or short-term prospect than Michael Porter. And Trae Young was obviously really gifted. He was, they were on the same team, so I saw Trae Young a bunch of times too. Porter was always the guy. And now looking back at it a year later, it does seem like there are a lot of serious question marks about Porter. First of all, because of the injury, and then it was so tough not to get any data on him as a shooter. Like, he was always a capable shooter. Okay, but he shot 30% from three in the like USA basketball U18 or U19 summer competition, whatever. He was one of the best players on the team, though. Markelle Fultz ended up winning MVP in that, before he would go into his Washington year and eventually become the first pick. But for Porter, it's like, where is he as a ball handler? Where is he as a shooter? Like, now you're seeing some of the NBA comparisons thrown out for him. I saw like taller Keith Van Horn as a comparison. I saw Jared Jeffries as a comparison, and that just isn't super appealing. You wonder if the back is going to hold up enough for him to like put on the type of weight he's going to need, like in his core and his lower body to really be, a sturdy, dominant NBA scorer. And I also just sort of wonder like where he sort of slots in for the Bulls. Like, the Bulls Paxson made that big thing about how he wants, a wing who can shoot and defend. Like, Porter is like 6'10.5" probably is what I'll guess he'll measure at. He's really like a pure 4 in today's game. Can the defense hold up if Markkanen's the 5 and Porter's the 4? If you're trying to shoehorn Porter into the 3, I feel like that's going to be a bad idea. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I could talk myself into Michael Porter for sure because I did really like his game when he was healthy. He was such a good off the dribble scorer. You could score from mid range pretty easily. He was just able to create separation off the dribble and get his own offense, is what I should say. But you never really got any data on that in college, so you're sort of just making projections. And then I think a back injury is so bad too. Like, his injury is the type of injury that could linger for a long time. So I would say that, while Trae Young is probably the most polarizing player in the draft, Porter might be the highest risk, like the biggest risk reward maybe in the draft, just because we have no data on him. And yeah, he looked great as a high school player, but it's still, you're making a big leap of faith if you take Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah, the Bulls are in an interesting spot with where they're at, because you talked about the Trae Young thing. Like, Trae Young better than I do. I mean, I watched a decent amount of Oklahoma games. He's obviously, when he's going, he's really fun, but he's smallish, struggles to finish around the rim, right? That's a thing.
Yeah, I need to get my computer charger so you can talk.
Okay, yeah. All right, yeah. I guess I'll just ramble on about Trae Young, even though I'd have to look up more about him. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously, the Steph Curry stuff is crazy. Whatever. If he even gets close to Steph Curry, that's just a great outcome for him. But I know I've had some reservations about drafting Trae Young, and it's not really because I don't like. First of all, like, I'm not totally in on Chris Dunn as definite point guard of the future type, but I'm also not totally sure about I love Trae Young or even a guy like Colin Sexton or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to take at that spot. Anyways, so I don't know. So talk more.
Here's my Trae Young.
Yeah, give me the Trae Young take.
He's definitely the best shooter and the best passer in the draft. Like, definitely. So those skills should translate. Like, I'm not even worried about the numbers where, he led college basketball in scoring and assists this year. Like, obviously, That's a great testament to his ability. But just from a skill set perspective, like, he's a brilliant passer. He's a much, much, much better passer than Colin Sexton. He's a much, much, much better shooter than Colin Sexton. Like, I think that he's possibly at an elite NBA level at both of those two skills. Now, he's going to get killed defensively. He's not going to be able to check anyone. And with the type of infrastructure the Bulls already have in place, like him and Zach LaVine and Denzel Valentine on the court together all at the same time, that would be a disaster.
Yeah, but I guess like long term, like if you drafted Trae Young, like where are you going with that? Like, and
then here's the other thing. So Trae Young's best on the ball because he has a really tight handle, like he can split double teams, brilliant passer, deep shooter off the dribble with range. But does Chris Dunn really make sense as a backcourt partner for him? Because while Dunn does have the defensive versatility to check multiple positions, Dunn isn't much of a threat off the ball. And if Dunn's not a threat off the ball, then you're sort of marginalizing, Trae Young's talent in a sense because you wouldn't surround him with the proper space. Now, Trae Young could kick out to Dunn, and Dunn could beat closeouts, and he could, take people to the rack. You would hope, but we saw that Dunn didn't really like playing off the ball when LaVine came back this year and tried to, take the hostile takeover of the offensive initiator position. So I can talk myself into Trae Young, man. I think Trae Young has a really high ceiling. I just think that, one of the trends in the league this year has been not only, the ratcheting up the volume of 3-pointers, but also the depth of the threes taken. Like being able to hit a three a few steps back behind the line creates so much more space both on and off the ball. I think that Trae Young off the ball would have a ton of gravity. On the ball, I mean, he is turnover prone. He is an inefficient player to an extent, but it was only because he was always trying to make things happen. Oklahoma had
nobody else. Yeah.
They had no one else. That team was garbage. They won 12 games before he showed up on campus. No one thought of Trae Young as a one and done coming into the year, even though he was a McDonald's All-American. He was about the number 25 ranked recruit. So he outperformed every reasonable expectation. Part of that was because he was able to get such a high volume of the possessions. He led college basketball in usage rate, like by far. He was putting up like bigger usage rates than Westbrook, like a 38 or 40% usage rate. But he had to because they had no one else who could make a play off the dribble, who could create their own offense.
Yeah, I remember watching some of those games, and like when he wasn't doing stuff, it was just like, what is? It might have been in like the tournament game. I remember like when he wasn't like handling the ball or shooting, like these other guys were just absolutely atrocious.
They were really bad. It was just, I mean, they didn't even have another top 100 recruit on the roster, really, I don't think, besides from maybe Cam McGusty, who didn't start for them. So anyways, that's my elevator pitch on Trae Young. Like, he's the best shooter and the best passer in the draft. But you would almost have to change the whole team to accommodate his unique skill set around him. Like, basically, I want Trae Young. I want 3 Mikal Bridgeses. And then I want, like, Clint Capella is my center. And I want to just have a run and gun, fun-ass team. But you need the defensive guys around him to really make that work, and also the additional shooters. So, what would really be a cool team would be Mirotic, Markkanen, and Trae Young. Like, then you would just have so much shooting. And the floor, like, the defense would be stretched so thin trying to contain those guys. Now, Bobby Portis could potentially fill a similar role as Mirotic, because Portis, while he's not nearly the ball handler or the perimeter player Mirotic is, he can knock down a jump shot. He proved this year that he's an NBA level scorer. There's no doubt about it. I do like, sort of the spacing options that his presence in the lineup will give you, but it's like his defense is bad. He's kind of selfish as a player. I think his best role is as a bench gunner.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that actually, we had somebody ask a question about Bobby Portis. Let me go find that question. We'll give it a shot. Oh, I think that was from our good friend VJ, does a ton of good work for Bloggable, and he just basically said expectations for Bobby Portis next year, and what type of the next question is about Nwaba. But yeah, I guess just expectations for Bobby Portis next year. I would agree with you. I think he is probably best as a 6-man type. He can feast on benches. We see him bump slay all the time, and he obviously has good games against good teams as well. But he was definitely like, you talk about like Nico was kind of a tank killer this year. I think Portis kind of was too in some of those games where he would just destroy, like when the Bulls had that stretch where they were beating all those shitty teams. Like a game I went to earlier this year against the Mavericks where Portis, they were down like 13 or 14, and Portis basically brought them back like almost single-handedly. Like, I think that's there's a value in a Bobby Portis. Like, I know he's up for an contract extension this summer. I would be hesitant to give him one unless you guys get something really team friendly. I would rather probably just go into next year, give him another year, see what he can do, grow with the team, and then I guess he can hit restricted free agency and you see where you are there. But yeah, I mean, I think Portis has value as a 6-man, but I think that's basically, like you said, like kind of where it ends. You could probably close games with him as well with Portis, Markkanen lineups, I think, against certain matchups. But like you said, I think because of the defense is bad, because of some of his chucking, and just because he's kind of crazy at times, just yeah, I think there's definitely a cap on his ceiling. 20 to 25 minutes a game seems about right for him.
See, and this is the fucking problem with the Bulls, is that they still have too many one-way players.
Yeah.
Like, when they made the Butler trade, they really got back 3 one-way players. Now, Markkanen was better defensively than I thought he would be. I also think he's going to continue to improve on that end of the floor, because basically every young big man struggles.
Yeah.
With the exception of Joel Embiid, who was injured 2 years in a row, came out and
is not like defensive player of the year,
like at 21. Well, he's just a freak. He's going to be one of the great NBA players of all time if he stays healthy, I think. So you can't really throw him in there. But it's like Markkanen will get better. Is he good enough to be the center? Is the question that I asked when he was taken. Is the question I still ask now. Because would the Bulls draft Mohamed Bamba if he's sitting there at 6 to sort of be the defensive complement to Markkanen? It makes sense in theory because Markkanen would give you this spacing dimension at the 4. Bamba could be a really good shot blocker and sort of like a rim runner. I think, if you put Bamba in the Capella role, potentially Bamba could be really bad. But Bamba's so limited offensively. He really can't do much when he gets the ball. So then it's like, do you even have to guard Bamba? Like, have you watched any of the Bucks series?
I have.
Bucks series. John Henson, I don't know if everyone's saying this because I haven't really been looking at Twitter much. John Henson's is horrible.
Like, I have seen that. And I feel like he's even done some nice things. See, I know he blocked a bunch of shots in game 1, but yeah, they just don't guard him. They don't guard him.
They don't guard him at all. He murders their offense just with his presence on the floor. So it's like, Bulls need to decide what kind of team they want to build. If they could get away with Markkanen at the 5, and just put really strong perimeter defenders around him, that could be sick.
Yeah, I think they would have I guess with the team they have now, if Levine's going to be a long-term part, I don't know how you can have. I don't know. I don't see I think you can obviously play Lowry at the 5 a decent amount, but in terms of if he's going to be playing the 5 basically full time, I just don't see how they can have a good defense if Levine is also there. I think you said, I think basically the rest of the team would have to be stud defenders. And Chris Dunn is really good defender. He's impressive on that. Yeah, he's very good. But if Levine's there, and then I guess you have to see what else is there. I would struggle to see Lowry being a full-time 5 and the Bulls also having a championship level defense. They were a bad defensive team this year. They had a few good stretches. I'm not sure how much that was actually them and just other teams kind of going through cold spells. So yeah, I mean,
but you look at it Portis really does have a good offensive value.
He does, yeah, absolutely.
He's trash on defense. Valentine turned into basically a knockdown 3-point shooter this year, but his PER was still horrible.
Valentine. I've said this before. I was on a Bulls pod the other day and I was talking about the Bulls have a solid bench they have in place. Portis, really good bench player. Valentine, pretty good bench player. If they bring back David Nwaba, really nice bench player.
I love Nwaba.
Yeah, if Cameron Payne is even average or competent, or if they can add another point guard somewhere else. I don't know if Jaren Grant will be back. They didn't talk about him all, or Paxson mentioned him. He's not good. He's basically a replacement level player. If he's your 5th guard, that's whatever. But the Bulls have built a solid bench there. But then, like you said, with one-way players, Levine right now is a one-way player, and he wasn't even good on offense this year, but I think he'll be better. Lowry's right now is more of a one-way player. And then Chris Dunn, I guess, is still not that good of an offensive player either. He's more of a defensive specialist. He still has a lot of room to grow in terms of taking care of the ball and scoring efficiently. I think his true shooting percentage was still under 50, which is awful. So, like you said, they don't have a lot of guys that you can really count on as a two-way stud.
Okay, so then why am I sitting here beating the Trae Young drum? It's because despite all these one-way guys, they really don't have anyone who's special.
Right. I think Lowry
with the exception of Markkanen and maybe Dunn's defense. So it's they're still going to need, they really need to use the 6th pick or maybe even the 22nd pick. Potentially there's an avenue where they play it safe at 6. Maybe take someone like Mikal Bridges, even though I think that would be a little bit of a reach.
It seems like a stretch. I love the idea. Mikal Bridges seems like a guy who could go to basically any team right now and really help, but the ceiling just doesn't seem like it's there. When I watch Villanova, it seems like he can't really dribble, can't really score for himself. But
he's if Tony Snell was good and not have horrible basketball IQ.
Yeah.
Which is an appealing player. You can see.
Yeah, it's valued to everybody, especially the way the league is now when you want to have a bunch of athletic, lengthy wings who can shoot. Great player. You put him on. I want him to go to Philly at 10 or whatever. I think that's a popular sentiment. It seems like he'd slot right in.
I don't know. I don't know if I want that. I do like Philly because I love Embiid and Simmons is fun too. But yeah, exactly. His skill set would fit in perfectly there. So I think the Bulls just have a lot of big questions. I hope they keep Nwaba. It'll be interesting to see if they make any other plays for free agency. I'd love to see them try to strike gold again with a buy low, high upside candidate. I don't know who's out there who would fit that description. I guess I should Google NBA free agency.
Yeah, it was like when I'm hoping that that they basically they don't try to do anything crazy in free agency. Like you said, go buy low. Like I know people will probably talk about Jabari Parker.
No,
I want absolutely no part of Jabari Parker.
I love Jabari.
Yeah, I mean, I do not want to give up on Jabari.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like his days with the Bucks are completely finished. He's been awful for them in these playoffs. His defense is not good. He's the guy. You feel bad for him with the knee injuries he's had. It seems like he just could really use a fresh start somewhere else. And then I guess if no one gave him a long term contract and the Bulls wanted to give him like a 1 year cheap deal, like I guess sure, why not? Because I don't expect the Bulls really to be winning anything significant next year. But I mean, if you look at besides like him, like some of the other restricted free agents out there, like Clint Capella, who's not going anywhere. Like you could say, like, I know some people have told me, oh, the Bulls should just throw him a huge offer sheet, and the Rockets won't be able to match it.
He would look good in a different system anyway. You know what I mean? Like, right. Capella is super talented. Don't get me wrong, but like what you do is you see what makes Capella good, and you like apply that to the future of the team. Like you try to find the next Capella, and you what made Capella good, and you surround him with something similar like that. Now,
he really isn't like the perfect. He's like the perfect fit for that system with Harden as a rim runner, block shots, crash the offensive glass, and then you got a bunch of shooters around him. That definitely in the perfect system for that or for him. And then like I guess besides him, there's also like Aaron Gordon.
I would love Aaron Gordon. Yeah. I would have Aaron Gordon as the 5.
Yeah, I agree.
5, Markkanen as the 4. I mean, honestly, it sounds crazy. I would consider throwing a max offer sheet at Aaron Gordon. Maybe not max.
Yeah, I think a max seems pretty high. I don't know.
Like I would much rather have Aaron Gordon than LaVine. Like no doubt about it. Aaron Gordon's a more useful player, and I'm totally playing him at the 5. Which is a little bit of a risk. It would be a very progressive. It'd be a very progressive move, but it would give you some ball handling at the 5. It would give you a little bit of shooting at the 5, and it would give you a ton of athleticism. And I think that him and Markkanen together could handle front court duties. This is probably unrealistic though. Would they let him go? Like I don't really. Yeah, what's up with the Magic right now?
I have no idea what the Magic are doing. They've obviously been just kind of a dumpster fire the last few years. I feel like there were rumors that he was on the trading block.
Did you get him?
I think they need to go. I think in on the Isaac Gordon front court because that would be a lot of fun. I think it'd be stupid for them to let him go.
They should draft Trae Young too. Like there's your trade.
They probably will. I mean, they need a point guard. I think their point guard by the end of the year was like DJ Augustine, and it was Elfrid Payton before that, and he stinks. So like they absolutely need a point guard. It seems like that seems like a natural fit to get Trae Young to Orlando.
Yeah, but if they don't love him, then I don't know. Like Trae Young's a leap of faith too. All these guys are. So I mean, you look at the lottery it's not gonna stick, but it's like you feel like Doncic, Ayton are gonna be gone for sure. Probably Bagley and Jaren Jackson. So then that would leave the Bulls with either Trae Young, Porter, Bamba, maybe Wendell Carter. I wouldn't take him, even though I think he's good. But I don't really want him for the Bulls.
So what do you have against Wendell Carter on the Bulls?
He got absolutely torched trying to defend the high pick and roll at Duke all year. Like I remember they played BC in an early season game. It was like the first ACC game. It was like in early December, I think. And they were just cutting him up. Now, and then like I also wonder like applying basically what the Rockets do forward. The question I'm asking with all these players is like, could this guy stick on the floor against Houston? I feel like Wendell Carter would get fucking blown off the floor. Because it's like, even if he could take advantage of Capella or or another front court player like on the glass and inside a little bit, at that point you're still trading 2s for 3s.
Right.
And him guarding the high pick and roll, it's like I don't think he could do it. But he is long, he's somewhat nimble. He's gonna put up big numbers, and I think that he could be a really good piece for a team. Like, and I'm not even totally out on the Al Horford comps for him, but you just have to realize how long that's gonna take. I mean, that could take 6-7 years. It's like, you don't know. Even if you figured that out by the time he's 25, that is pretty far down the line. For the Bulls, I mean, Carter is good. I could probably talk myself into him, just like I could talk myself into a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I don't think there's like anybody who I'm looking at and be like, you know what, I absolutely hate that pick. I see the question marks with all of them.
They all have red flags.
Yeah, with Bagley and Carter both do, like you mentioned, their defensive question marks. Trae Young's got the defensive question mark. Mikal Bridges can't really create for himself. Jaren Jackson is Jackson and Bob are super raw. Trae Young, I mentioned Trae Young already. I don't even know who else. Michael Porter's got the back injury, so there definitely is no, I think, slam dunk pick for them. There's a ton of guys who I think I can definitely talk myself probably into any of these guys, whoever they pick. So I guess I'm happy that I won't be like super mad whoever they pick there, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see who they end up deciding on.
Yeah, like you said, all these guys. So I could talk myself into Bagley, even though people are souring on Bagley. Like,
I mean, I feel like if he falls to 6, like the talent level just
of it. 3. Like, what if they jump up to 3?
Yeah.
And Ayton and Doncic are gone. God, I would love Luka. Like, Luka would be my first pick. Who would be your first pick? Do you want Ayton? Do you want Luka? It seems like Ayton is taking sort of the consensus number 1 spot.
They got the number 1 pick. Yeah, I don't know. That's Doncic. Like, I feel like he's probably underrated by a lot of people. I've watched a few of his games, and his passing ability and just vision and stuff like that is next level. And the kid's 19 years old, and he's basically putting up incredible numbers in the second best league in the world.
I also make LaVine and Dunn better. Just playing with a guy like that would just like elevate everyone else.
What's the deal with his defense? I know people worry about, is the athleticism going to translate, blah, blah, blah. I know he's got good. He's whatever 6'8", 6'9", is pretty good size. What's his defensive outlook?
Really has a nose for the ball. Like, he just makes big plays. He just gets the ball. Is a rebounder. Is just a positional defender. Like, obviously, if he's going to be isolated in space, and like, is he going to be able to guard CJ McCollum or something? Like, no. But like, no one can really. But I do think he has a nose for the ball. He'll make enough big plays defensively to add value on that end. It's like offense. He just makes winning plays in general. Like, in the same way, like I saw Ayton from an early age too at the EYBL stop a couple of years ago. I did a big story on him. It's like Ayton is phenomenal, but I sort of view him as the type of player who's going to put up big numbers on a bad team for a long time.
Ayton?
Whereas Doncic is going to put up understated but secretly good numbers, but like not like 25 and 15 or something.
Yeah, so I guess to that point, about Ayton, obviously he's a physical freak, just an absolute monster. But another big guy with defensive question marks. And I watched a few Arizona games this year where I kind of saw, he seems like he's just kind of slow defensively. Like, I feel like his instincts aren't there. I don't know if that's just not trying in college, bad defense, or if that's is that going to be a serious problem with him? Because it just seems like he was a lot of times a step slow, because the dude is 7 feet tall, a complete monster. But I think he only blocked under 2 shots a game. And I feel like at that size, you should accidentally block 2 shots a game. Because you look at Bamba and Jaren Jackson, they were both blocking 5 shots a game.
Okay.
And so tell me about Ayton's defense.
Well, so one thing in defense of Ayton's defense, he was not playing center.
Yeah, right. He played with that big white guy. Euro was
Dusan Ristic.
Yeah.
But Ayton never wanted to play center. Like, in AAU, he played next to Brandon McCoy, who might be in this draft. He was a freshman at UNLV.
Yeah.
Shot blocking center. So he played next to him for Cal Supreme on the EYBL. It's like he never really played center or wanted to play center. I think that he has no excuse not to be a dominant defender, and that's what makes it so frustrating. He's a step slow mentally more than physically, just reading the floor.
Right. I said instincts. It seems
instincts. He's really he's like Wilt Chamberlain, really. I mean, when I watch him, I think this is what Wilt Chamberlain must have been like. Just absolutely unstoppable. And then grade it for the era where everyone's smaller. Absolutely unstoppable physical force. But sort of underwhelming in a sense too, because you feel like he could be so much more. Now he's also 19 years old or whatever. So perhaps he grasps it eventually and just becomes a great defensive player. But Karl Towns was a much better defensive player at the college level than he did. And he sucks at defense in the NBA. And it's just really, there's so much to grasp at the center position. The 5 is the one position in the NBA where defense is always going to be more important than offense, I think. So, like, I think Ayton.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a bad defensive 5, you get played off the floor. I mean, we see it in these playoffs. Like, I mean, a guy like, and even if you're not, I mean, I guess it's just easy as a center to get played off the floor if you have a bad weakness. If you're playing against, I mean, even a guy like Hassan Whiteside, he's not a great, he blocks a lot of shots. I'm not sure he's actually a great defender, but like we see when the Sixers have spread him out and like he gets played off, he's useless. So like if you can't guard guys, if you can't guard in the perimeter, if you can't, but also protect the rim effectively, you're just going to get absolutely destroyed when games really matter.
Yeah, it will be interesting if because do you think the Bulls are going to jump up? I kind of have a feeling they're going to jump up.
The NBA is going to, the lottery's in Chicago. It's going to be rigged.
Yeah, I'm going, I think.
Nice. When is that? Like, that's in like 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's May 15th.
I'll be crossing my fingers for that. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see because they have so many options. Let's answer a few more questions here. I know we got a few other ones. Also, I think draft related. Here's one from a Greek friend at Greek Bulls fan. If the Bulls drafted a big at 6, whether I guess if they drafted big at 6, it'd probably be Bamba or Jackson fell, or I guess Wendell Carter Jr. Who are some possible small forward prospects at number 22?
Okay, good call. Let me look this up real quick.
I feel like some guys that I've remembered names of, like Chandler Hutchison from Boise,
and he'd fit the Bulls.
Troy Brown, Oregon.
Yeah. Keita Bates-Diop from Ohio State.
Yeah.
I don't really have strong feelings on a ton of these guys. I would love Zaire Smith.
I think I saw him mocked.
Heck, I don't think he's going to last till 22, though. But it's possible. I mean, he didn't put up big numbers. He does have some buzz right now. He did decide to sign with an agent, so he feels confident. Obviously, he's a first-round pick. He could end up being a lottery pick. Yeah, Kyrie Thomas is interesting, too. Kyrie Thomas is great. Really good three-point shooter. He's only 6'3" as a two-guard, but he's got a 6'10" wingspan. The problem is he can't really, like, create whatsoever, and he's not good at scoring in between the three-point line. But he's awesome in transition. He's like a pretty high-level athlete. So he's someone that would be like trying to hit like, you know, a single or a double, just like as a solid contributor, like 3-and-D wing. He's a really aggressive defender though. So I think he's going to be a good NBA player. Like he's an elite, potentially an elite defensive NBA defender, I think. So I would not mind Kyrie Thomas at 22, even though he's a little bit of a low ceiling pick. Anthony Simons would be someone who I would be really tempted to take too. He's the high school kid in this draft. I haven't seen him play. He's one of the few elite high school guys I haven't seen play because he showed up to USA basketball camp with a broken hand, so he wasn't able to go. But if you watch any highlights of him, he's ridiculously bouncy and he can shoot off the dribble. Maybe he has some similar strengths to Levine, really. But he's a high upside guy. I think that maybe he could fit into that offensive initiator role. The next Markelle Fultz comparisons, I think, are a little much for him just because I don't know if he has that much juice defensively. But it's like if you're picking at 22, he was projected to go number 5 overall in ESPN's first 2019 mock draft. He presents some pretty good value if you're willing to be patient with him. So he's kind of a wing. He's like a 1-2 combo guard. So I would think about him. Hutchinson would be okay. I wouldn't mind him.
How about Cincinnati's Jacob Evans?
Yeah, Evans is interesting because he wasn't very efficient for Cincinnati this year, but Cincinnati also played as a snail's pace. They're the number 2 defense in the country, and he was a big part of that. He can defend a little bit for sure, but he's another guy who, like, can he do anything off the dribble, or is his offense going to be strictly tied to his three-point shot, which is good, not great. I don't love Jacob Evans, but he's another one of these guys who I could see coming through. Maybe in the right system of being a useful piece. I really like Lonnie Walker, but I think the Pelicans
he's going to go higher, right? Probably.
But like his numbers were trash. Like look at Walker's numbers; they're not very good.
Yeah. I think that it seemed like that Miami team was kind of obviously loyal, and they were disappointing. I know Bruce Brown got hurt. Looks like he's mocked in ESPN towards the end of the first round.
Yeah, I don't see the appeal with Bruce Brown.
He's only 6'3".
What does Bruce Brown do well? I never figured that out. But Lonnie Walker, even though his numbers were bad, like at USA Basketball Camp, he was just a killer. And he was really
He's
good.
he's an athletic freak, right? I don't know that much about him.
Really athletic. Yeah. He's really coordinated around the rim, skilled finisher. And he has a very, what I would call, projectable shooting stroke. It's compact. He gets it off quick. He's going to be a good NBA shooter. There's no doubt about it. And I think, even though he's only 6'4", he's got a 6'10" wingspan. He's super athletic. He had one finish where he basically did like the Michael Jordan, like switching hands.
Yeah.
I think that was against Louisville, which was sort of his breakout game. If you want to go watch Lonnie Walker highlights from that game, that was kind of the full package of like him at his best, where he's draining threes, he's creating off the dribble and finishing. If he was there at 22, which I don't think he will be, I would take him. I guess a more realistic candidate would be someone like Kyrie Thomas or Keita Bates-Diop or Chandler Hutchinson.
Do you know anything about this European dude? I don't even no idea how to say his name. His last name's Musa Zanin.
I really don't know much about him, but he's supposed to be someone who can fill it up really quick. From three-point range, like, I would take that guy, too.
Do you know how to say his name?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, yeah. Because ESPN has him mocked at number 20, so that's obviously right in the area of the Bulls pick.
He sounds a little bit like Hazonia to me, where he supposedly is like a microwave scorer and seems pretty athletic. Like, I think sort of the thing is that he was like a slasher who learned how to shoot, I think. So I'm never against taking a Euro. You just have to be patient, but his skill set, seems like it would fit with where the league's going today. I don't know how his defense is. Maybe he's just another one-way player.
Yeah, I have zero idea. I see his name there. He's a small forward, and he seems right around there. You mentioned Mario Hazonia, and the second part of this question from our Greek Bulls fan, should the Bulls go after Mario Hazonia because the Magic, I believe, declined his option, so he will be a free agent. How do you feel about trying to get Hazonia as somewhat of a reclamation project? He started to show a little more this year. I know he had one game where he went off on the Bulls. I'm pretty sure he's an absolute terrible defensive player, but there's still some offensive talent there. Like, could he be an interesting maybe bench flame scorer to add to him? And Bobby Portis can tear bench units apart. How do you feel about that?
I like him more than Valentine. If you're projecting forward, like I would take him, but it's like you can't pay him.
Right, yeah.
That's why the Felicio contract was such a killer, because the Bulls weren't paying anyone else to keep him, but it's like, first of all, you're just paying him so much more than his market value. And now it sort of limits your opportunity to make that other type of gamble on a younger player with higher upside.
And looking back, I guess I was fine with the Felicio deal at the time. I can't really go back and be like, oh, it was so awful. Obviously, it looks terrible now. Hindsight's 2020, but I guess maybe they probably did jump into it too quick because they basically gave it to him right off the bat. And maybe the 4 years thing was maybe a little excessive there. Maybe if they give him 2 years, $16 million, or like 2 years, maybe a little extra average annual value to make up for the lack of years. But Felicio was an absolute disaster this season. I guess maybe that was almost better for the tank. He was a tank master, but it was really unfortunate. As a guy, the Bulls fans came to love Felicio. He seems like a fun-loving guy. Does a lot of hilarious stuff on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that, but he was just bad. It was sad.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like I 22. It really depends what they do at 6, right?
Right. Yeah. Because I feel like I kind of want to come out of this draft with a big man and at least these 2 picks, if they keep both picks, with a small forward. Paxson mentioned specifically a small forward, and then an athletic center that they can groom.
Absolutely take Jontay Porter at 22.
Right, yeah, Michael Porter's brother.
Yeah, but then you need a perimeter player with your first pick if you're going to take him. And it's like, who's the perimeter player? Like, man, Mikal Bridges, Jontay Porter draft, I think would be pretty fun. But, maybe you don't want to take Bridges at 6, but it's like, all right, then I need to take Trae Young. I would even maybe talk myself into Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who I really like. He's like a better version of Chris Dunn. But you already have Chris Dunn, so is it really worth getting Shea?
Right. Like, he would actually have to turn out to be like way better than Chris Dunn for it to worth it. Yeah, because like they need to hit this. This pick is so important. They need to hit on it well. If you're basically just drafting like a slightly better version of Chris Dunn, like, I mean, where exactly is that getting you? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see if we get any other questions. Oh, we could go back to VJ because he had the Portis question earlier, and we mentioned David Nwaba briefly. But David Nwaba, I believe he's restricted free agent this summer. I would love the Bulls to keep him around. I think I would hope they should be able to. The summer is going to be interesting just because there are so few teams with a lot of cap space, which means a lot of teams will have will have their MLEs to play with, and I could see a team using part or maybe close to all of their MLE in a guy like Nwaba. He's obviously very limited in what he can do. His 3-point shooting did get a little better this year, but he's still very low volume on that end. No one's really going to consider him a 3-point shooter, but he plays with so much energy. His defense is really solid, even though he's, I think, a little undersized. He's just a really nice player to have off the bench. What do you think? Is it like a contract that makes sense?
I love Nwaba. I don't know, 4 or 5 million a year. Keep Nwaba for sure. Nwaba's just a winning player. He's one of those guys whose contributions go beyond the box score.
Yeah, like poor man's Marcus Smart, maybe. Like I don't even think Marcus Smart's that good because his shooting is horrible. I mean, maybe you could even put him almost on the level of a Marcus Smart if he was in a better situation, like in Boston.
He's like Tony Allen, really.
Yeah.
I mean, he's ferocious defensively, and he's only 6'4", but he's got a 7-foot wingspan. Absolutely elite athlete. Like if you're grading NBA players on their athleticism relative to the curve, so like maybe prime Zach LaVine is like an A+ athlete or something, or like Aaron Gordon's an A+ athlete. He's like an A or an A+. Like he's a freak athlete. Obviously, he has limitations as a shooter, but you know what? He is always looking to attack when he gets the ball. He'll space the floor and then attack. And he'll move the ball too, even though he's not a great passer. Like he's also not selfish. So I love Nwaba. I would keep Nwaba for sure. He's a winning player to me, the type of guys that you need on a good team. In the same way that Robert Covington was sort of like what the Sixers got out of the process. The hope is that maybe Nwaba could be that for the Bulls. Now, obviously, the skill sets are a little bit different. Covington is a really good shooter, and that's just not part of Nwaba's skill set. But I still want Nwaba around. I think $4 or $5 million annually. Like he's way more valuable than Felicio.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah. And it'll just be interesting because of the market. And I think the MLE is going to be something like 8 or 9 million this year. Like, do you think a team that needs a wing would give him that full MLE? Like, I would think not, just because of the limitations, but I guess even if they do, like the Bulls should almost match anything because he's not going to get anything outlandish, you would think. So I see there should be almost no reason not to have Nwaba back next season and for the next couple of years. I would hope.
Yeah, sign Nwaba.
Yeah. So then I guess the Bulls, we haven't talked about this, I guess, that much yet. The Bulls' other restricted free agent is going to be our good friend Zach LaVine, and that's probably outside of the draft is going to be the biggest decision the Bulls have to make. Zach LaVine, as we all know, tore his ACL last season, missed basically the whole first half this year. When he come back in like early February this year, came back, he was not very good, which obviously we have to give him some slack. He did. I mean, the game against the Timberwolves, he was exceptional. Oh, besides that game, no, it was mostly bad. He was not efficient. He was kind of a gunner. His defense is as bad as ever. I still think that he's certainly better than what he showed this season because, again, coming back from a torn ACL, you're not going to expect a guy to come back and be really good to begin with. So that leads us, but in the situation the Bulls are in, he was a centerpiece of the Jimmy Butler trade. Now he's a restricted free agent after playing 25 games for the team. You're going to have to pay him money, a lot of money. Like, do we think anybody?
Do they have to pay him a lot of money? So that's the Zach LaVine question facing the franchise right now. To me, the biggest thing the Bulls have to do this offseason is be disciplined enough not to give Zach LaVine a dumb contract because no one else has money. The Bulls have a ton of money, but no one else does.
Right, that's the big question. Like,
LaVine's going to be like, if I'm truly a key piece to the future of this team, I need to get paid like it. And the Bulls need to be like, well, the market isn't what it was 2 years ago. Evan Turner ain't going out there and getting 4 years, $70 million anymore. Joakim Noah's not getting $72 million. Luol Deng's not getting $70 million. Those contracts are done. So even though we do value you as, one of the centerpieces of the team going forward, your market value simply isn't as high as you believe it to be. So therefore, they should give him what, like 13 a year?
I think it'll be more than that. I mean, and all it takes is like obviously there won't be many teams with cap space.
Exactly.
I mean, like a team
late in the offseason. I mean,
like a team like with the Hawks, like a team like the Hawks, I think have cap space. Like with the Hawks have like such little talent, like so little talent. Would a team like the Hawks go out and like give him like $20 million a year? Like, I also like the Sixers could be an interesting destination if they miss their top guys, but like I don't think they would pay him a lot given what they have in place, since they still kind of need Fultz.
No one's going to sign him. So what the Bulls should do is just let him linger in free agency the whole year, whole summer, similar to what they did with Mirotic, and then try to bring him back on a team-friendly deal. That's what I would do. I'd just let him.
13 million. I would be surprised by 13 million. I feel like I've settled on maybe like 15 or 16 million a year would make sense, and that's what I'm kind of hoping for. Because he can still play into that deal. Like I said, he was bad this year. He still has a ton of talent. He'll be better in his second year back from the ACL. His offense, before he tore the ACL, he was a really nice third option with the Wolves. The Bulls, at this point, and they need him to be whatever, a 2 or a 1A type option. I don't think he's ever going to be like a super 1. Like some people have gone crazy about his upside. Like he's not going to be. At least I would be surprised. I will never say never. Given we saw Jimmy Butler be a 30th pick and take huge jumps into a top 10 player, but I would be surprised if Zach LaVine ever became like a bona fide number 1, like you said, offensive initiator, where he's an efficient scorer and he can also be like an elite playmaker off the dribble. I would be surprised if that ever happened, but he could still be a really good player. So I'm, like you said, kind of hoping maybe 15, 16, 17 million a year, and that he ends up playing into that deal, even if he's never that good defensively. If he's a really good offensive player, that works for me. But I still do worry that just one team will throw him a big ass offer, and the Bulls, I think they're going to match it. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
If that happens, then they have a tough decision to make. Like if it's worth paying Zach LaVine $5 million extra a year to still have him around, like it's maybe still worth it. But I don't really see another team like making, like teams are going to want a buy low guy in his situation, not a buy high guy, you know?
Right. Yeah. I totally agree. Like I would still be, because I've had some people like say to me on Twitter, they think that all it takes is one team, that he's going to end up getting a huge deal, which is why I still just kind of worry about some desperate GM. Oh, we need talent. We're going to throw this guy a ton of money. But if you look at the market and just like teams, it seems like they've been being a little smarter. They won't do that. So I'm crossing my fingers that the Bulls will bring him back on a reasonable deal. I just assumed that no matter what happens, he's coming back, since he wasn't.
LaVine can be a great offensive player.
Right? Yeah.
Out of the question. Like, yeah. Could he be as valuable as Devin Booker? I don't think it's out of the question.
Oh, I don't think so either. And I mean, Devin Booker is a really nice player, but even he's still got a lot of room to grow as well. But yeah, I mean, could LaVine be 25 points per game?
I mean, that's pretty high.
Yeah, that is high. Maybe 20 to 20.
Is that it's like, what's the volume required to get 25 points a game? You know, now if they could surround him with a bunch of wing type, 3-and-D defenders, really, those players are so valuable, and they get underdrafted every single year, which is something the Bulls are going to have to look at both in free agency and in the draft.
And then there is the question of how he also fits with Chris Dunn and Lauri Markkanen, because they played the sample size was very small this year, but when they did play together, it was terrible. And I feel like we saw some issues with Dunn and LaVine. You kind of mentioned that earlier, that they didn't exactly mesh that well. And it seemed like there were times when they were on the court together where Lauri kind of got frozen out and he wasn't really getting as many shots as you would hope. And then we saw at the end of the year when Dunn and LaVine were hurt and Lauri kind of had a few huge scoring games again. He really found his groove again. Like they'll have to and that was another conversation that they asked John Paxson, his presser. Like, does there have to be some type of hierarchy here? Like, are they gonna have to figure that out? And Paxson kind of wanted to poo-poo that, said like if they just play team basketball and they play winning basketball, or if they don't worry about that kind of stuff, it'll all settle together. Which I understand that sentiment, whatever. But like, I feel like there will have to be at least some kind of delineation of roles and a hierarchy there at some point if these three are like their main guys going forward. And then I guess whoever else we see comes in. What did they draft at 6? So it'll be really interesting to see, because they were very bad together this year. But the summer will be big for them working together, and the next year, hopefully, that they can start finding a groove together.
I agree, and it goes back to kind of the sense that they have too many one-way players. So that's what I would think about for the Bulls. As I'm approaching both free agency and the draft this year, is just try to find two-way players, try to find maybe some buy low guys who can sort of elevate your other core pieces on the roster. Because even though the NBA is a star-driven league, I think we've seen so many times that just like situation and environment can really dictate success of your best players. You need to put them in a position to succeed, and drafting all one-way players or signing all one-way players isn't the way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have one more question that we can, or we got a couple. We can finish up with a couple last questions. So
Cool.
looking ahead to next year. This is from Kyle McMahon at Kyle34B on Twitter. He says he does not want another season of tanking. What is your opinion on another year of young players, so that's developing versus trying to get free agents and trying to make the playoffs?
Definitely tank. I'm in on tank. If you're going to tank, do 2 years. If you're going to tank 2 years. It's kind of stupid to tank for 1 year. It's like, then what are they ultimately looking at? A team that's just going to get the 3 seed in the East and like get demolished by the Sixers, or like, you need to have some commitment to it if you're going to do it. So I'm tanking next year. I want Cam Reddish. I want RJ Barrett. I want Nas Little. Those are going to be the top guys in the 2019 draft. If you're going to tank 2 years.
I do not think they're going to tank. At least I don't think they're going to try to tank. Because it seemed like Paxson just wanted no part of that when they asked him about it. I mean, I guess that could just be him playing that. I think they'll be I think they'll be good enough where they win. I've already said that I think they're going to, or thought to myself, I think they're going to win in like the low 30s next year. I mean, you don't think it's like,
just tank. You got to tank for 2 years if you're going to tank. Otherwise, why'd you trade Jimmy Butler? Show some commitment.
I don't know. I just don't see it happening. I don't think they want to do it again. I think these guys will end up being good enough where they won't be bad enough. I mean, I guess there could be a big injury, and I'm curious. Like, what are they going to do with Robin Lopez? Like, what are they going to do with Justin? Like, are they going to keep those guys? They talked about Lopez as like a key part. So, like, if they go into next year with whatever their core 3 right now, and with Robin Lopez as their starting center, and they got a few nice bench guys, and whoever they draft, like, I feel like that team is like a decent team. But that won't be good enough. That won't be bad enough to tank. And they do have the new lottery rules, or the new lottery rules in place where tanking isn't quite as incentivized.
Now it's just going to be 9 teams gunning for the bottom 5. I mean,
so I don't know. I just don't think I think the Bulls have enough decent talent where they won't be a tanking team next year. But there's also some people who think the Bulls are going to be like a legitimate playoff contender next year. I just don't see that happening. I don't think they'll be good enough defensively. Their offense is still a lot of question marks about it. It would take like everything, their best case scenario coming together to even be like a lower tier playoff seed. And like if that happens, like I mean, I guess that means their young players really came together nicely, and that's a good thing. But then you also worry about them kind of getting into the whole treadmill of mediocrity deal, because I don't know. So like I'm just kind of hoping. I'm not. I guess not necessarily hoping, but I'm just going into this summer and then going into next year, I hope we see clear development from these that are key young guys. I hope they make a good draft pick or two, and that they show something next year. But if they don't win if they don't compete for the playoffs, that's fine. If they end up losing, just naturally, because one thing about this year is that kind of screwed them is they won a shit ton of close games. That bad team, the Bulls were like I think the 2nd or 3rd worst net rating in the league, and they still won 27 games because they won something like 21 or 22 games that were like clutch games where the score was within 5 points in the last 5 minutes. If you flip a few of those games, the Bulls probably end up with the worst. They end up with the worst record. That happened to the Kings too. So like, will that happen next year as well? Will they be bad again, but then also win all these close games? They could be a similar team as they were this year and then lose a bunch of those close games, and maybe they end up kind of tanking naturally. Like I said, I don't think they're going to try to tank, but maybe next year they just lose more close games than they did this year, and they end up losing a ton again anyway. So I don't know, because Nico definitely helped them in a lot of those close games, and they don't have a guy to replace Nico yet because he was awesome with the Bulls. He's awesome right now. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't think they're going to try to tank purposefully unless they have injuries, and then maybe they go all out and take in the second half of the year. But I'm thinking next year it'll be something like low 30s in wins.
Hope not. They're just going to get like if they want to make the playoffs, they should have kept Jimmy Butler and Nikola Mirotic. They could have made the playoffs and been a good, fun team. But if you're going to make those moves to tear it down, aim a little higher and do it by aiming lower. I think that they need another top 5 pick next year. Is what I think.
That's fair. I mean, I would not be if they get top 5 next year, but there's also clear development from the young guys. Obviously, I feel like that's probably the best case scenario that they could have.
Yeah.
I guess we could end it on a fun question from Hungarian Jordan. Big Board ranked the prospects you would like to spend today's holiday with. Is there a holiday today? What?
It's April 20th.
Oh yeah, 420. Okay, yeah. I was like, what holiday is it? Okay, so 420. There you go. Rank those prospects of who you'd want to spend with today.
I don't know. I would say Bamba. Bamba would probably be the most interesting. I feel weird even talking about this because these players are so young. I just made the Final Four, and that was my main takeaway. Like I'm 30 now, and I've been doing this for a few years. So like before when I started doing it, it didn't seem like I was that much older than the players, and now it really seems like I'm a lot older than them. When I was hanging out with like Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges and those guys. So I feel a little weird talking about what teenagers I'd like to get high with, but Bamba's definitely the most interesting player in the class.
Yeah, I mean, I guess even if you don't want to go the high route, I guess it's just like he seems like one of the coolest dudes. Like you'd want, like if
Bamba's cool.
Yeah, I guess like even for the Bulls, just like if you want to draft like a cool dude for the Bulls, who would you want? Like who'd be a good personality to have on the team?
Yeah, Bamba's cool. He's definitely cool. He's almost like a little too like corporate, I think. I'm worried about that. I'm not sure how real he is. Ayton's hilarious. He's like the only honest athlete I've ever talked to. I think that he would be fun to hang out with. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea. You would have much more than me. I don't really know much about these guys personally.
I think Bamba's cool.
Bamba, yeah, Mo Bamba. There's our cool guy. If the Bulls want to draft a cool guy,
Mo Bamba.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's basically most of the. I think we got through all the questions we got. We got through most of the season. The season was not exactly the most fun. I'm curious, how many games do you think you watched this past season, this Bulls season?
Well, I have to watch college basketball for my job, so when the Bulls were better. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I watched a decent amount though.
The early games. I kind of checked them out. When they started playing a little better, I got a little more excited about watching them just because they weren't completely miserable. Winning games was a little much for me, but at least they looked better. Honestly, the second half of the year, I was watching other games because I had to watch other games for my job as well. So I just basically tuned out of watching games, and I would watch highlights and I'd watch some stuff later. But it was tough to watch the second half of the year, which was just kind of a joke overall with what they were doing. But I mean, it was whatever had to be done. It was a tough year. That's kind of one of the reasons why I don't necessarily want to tank next year. I guess next year I just want a watchable product that's kind of fun. And with these young guys, I'm kind of hoping that that'll be the case. And then hopefully they'll maybe either lose enough games where they get a top 5 pick, or maybe they'll get crazy and go for a playoff spot. I don't know, but we'll see. It was an interesting season this year. I'm very excited to watch all these former Bulls in the playoffs. Watching beardless Nico tear shit up has really brought a tear to my eye because I'd given up on him, and now he's really, really killing it in New Orleans. It's been a lot of fun to watch, and it's even been fun to watch Rondo. Now that he's not on the Bulls anymore, I can deal with kind of watching
him do watch everyone do their thing. Each one, everyone but Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, screw Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, but Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, but yeah, it's been fun to watch this guy in the playoffs, and I guess we got the lottery coming up in May, and then the draft in late June. We should definitely talk about. Maybe we'll talk about that, or maybe we can do another one of these after the lottery happens, and then we'll certainly do some more stuff as the draft approaches, and we'll talk more. But besides that, we'll be covering the Bulls at Bloggable. The site Twitter is at Bulls Blogger. You can find me on Twitter at Bulls_J. You could find Ricky at SBN_Ricky. And that's all. We'll see you guys next time.